everyone, Justine with Blue Jay Orchids. Welcome back to the channel. We have a dividing, unpotting, a little bit of a project video today. So here I'm pointing out that there's some mold that has started growing in the basket. This plant has been in here, I think, about 3 years, definitely at least 2. This is one of my first Cattleyas, and she's sentimental. She's been growing pretty well, but it is time to be free of this basket. So right now I sped it up a little bit, because if not, this video would take like an hour plus. And right now I'm trying to get the pins out of the basket so that I can take it apart. The basket has some rotted parts, some fungus growing on it. This is the downside of using organic material. I mean, overall, I like the look of baskets, except for when they end up starting to look like this. But the plants will be fine, and you will see what new homes she ends up in. For everyone saying don't stab yourself with the scissors or the clippers, maybe you should use pliers. The reason I wasn't is because I couldn't find them. Finally found the pliers, so now I'm using pliers to get some of the wire out. And you can see I'm kind of struggling and fighting with the basket. It's just kind of the nature of when the plant has grown into it so well. And these things are made to last, but just when you're growing things in constant moisture outside, they will deteriorate eventually. Depending on the plant and how the media is doing, you do have the option to just up the basket size. You don't have to completely deconstruct it, but I felt better about deconstructing it. And then also, I didn't mention it, but you did see me sterilize my cutting tools. That's also important. You also want to sterilize your pliers. Anything that is touching plant material, sterilize, because you don't want to be transferring virus, bacteria, what have you, from plant to plant. And then I also wipe down that tray each time with some like bleach cloths as well. But yeah, this thing was in there pretty well. So this is a time-lapse segment part, so it's sped up a little bit more, but here I finally get a piece of the wire that's holding the basket together cut. And the angle and trying to work and film was a little challenging, so hopefully you can kind of get an idea, and I find this very helpful as far as explaining how to deconstruct a basket if you're trying to get it unpotted. Never mind, this is the time-lapse part, but it looks very similar. So yes, finally making some progress on the basket here, and like I said, I did speed up stuff, and I think you can still have a pretty good idea of the process, but I mean, it's hard to gauge what's entertaining and what's boring sometimes. Alright, literally peeling back the basket in this part, and you can see some of the white mesh. That's from, those bag babies, how they have like the sleeve over them. It was a good idea at the time. Going forward, I don't know if I would do it again. Trying to get the roots, and you'll see it in a little later video, trying to get the roots out of that white mesh stuff it was a pain. But the theory behind it is to keep the medium from falling out. And then you can also get some glimpses of what we mean when we say the media is breaking down. So some of the white is mold breakdown, and some of the white is that white mesh. But yeah, this media used to be bark, and yeah, it's pretty broken down at this point. Alrighty, so she is getting there. We are just about ready to free her from her basket, and let's see, it's hard for me to tell exactly where I am because I can't see the video as I'm telling you about it, but I think I'm showing you the basket now, or I will be shortly. So yeah, that's what I thought was going to be the hardest part, and now I'm heading into this white mesh. Yeah, that was the most time consuming, took the longest, most pain in the butt part of this repot. And yeah, that was, I'm not gonna lie, that was not enjoyable. Like I said, made me rethink wanting to use it as a way of potting things. But we got through it. Took a while. Might be slightly traumatized, but, and everyone who knows me knows I'm being sarcastic. But trying to get as many roots as I can that are viable. And I think either later on this video or at some point I dropped the poor orchid. So broke a little bit of the one of the new leads, broke a flower spike off. I was going to cut the flower spike anyway. Because whenever you are stressing out a plant, it's beneficial to cut the flowers so that the flowers aren't stealing energy from the plant. But yes, so like I said, I'm trying to be as gentle. I know it doesn't look like it, but I'm massaging the media out of the roots, trying to get all the white stuff off. This is a very sentimental orchid to me. This is one of the first Cattleya orchids I ever bought, so I started out with Phalaenopsis, and this was the first, like, expensive orchid I bought. I thought it was really expensive. It was either $35 or $45. And I'm, and I mean, embarrassed isn't necessarily the right word, but we'll just say it's no longer the most expensive orchid I've bought. Yeah, orchids have a way of doing that to you. There's a whole rabbit hole we can go down on a different day if we wish, called Orchilerium or something. In the, I think it was like Victorian age, people went so crazy over orchids they actually gave it a definition. I read Orchid Muse a while back, and it was pretty entertaining. I actually picked it up at the library. Was there with my kids, and I'm like, I'm going to look at the plant books. I'm like, oh, orchid in the name. I'm going to look at that. So yeah, a little rabbit hole. But we are making progress with the busy bev. Dividing time. Originally I was going to keep this as, just a big specimen plant, but it's growing in too many different directions. So and then see how this part's blunt, so this way I can use this part without worrying about hitting stuff. And then sterilized, of course. And then I have picked out where I was cutting. Right. I'm gonna cut right here, so I gotta figure out how to do that. Okay, so it looks like we're gonna cut some roots. See, the part's separated, but it's still connected with a bunch of roots. So come in here and cut some of these connectors. You might be able to just wiggle them. Okay, let's see. Don't want to be crushing all these good roots though. Here we go. Alright, so that might be a slight problem there. So let's see, I think if I cut right here, we got a nice little solid divide. Let's do a little bit more flame. That's good. Alright, pretty good piece on this one. Pretty good piece on this one. Let me take away some of these. Some of these old roots here. Some of these old center ones. Alright, rinse it off. This one's good to go. Nice, free of rotted wood piece. Go through and maybe trim let's not go crazy. Yeah, nice little new piece. All right, potting up of the bigger division. And we are using a zip tie to anchor it to the pot. And then we're going to use some lava rock around it. So I'm trying to place it towards the back of the pot, just so it has more room to grow over the long term. Because I try to pot in a way where I don't have to repot in a while. And there are all sorts of different theories for how to repot and what's the correct way to repot. I have found a way that works for me in my environment, and I also like to experiment some. So there are a bunch of different ways to do the same thing. I know in growing outside in Florida where I live, I am better off using inorganic material. So I choose clay pot with aeration and lava rock, and it has been doing fabulous for me. I still run into like some rot here and there, but not near as much as when I used to. Like just pot in like um, typical bark media. And then you have to water a lot, but the rain does a lot of my watering for me. So it's not too. And then also, I have a lot of humidity growing outside as well. So this isn't the method for everyone, but this has worked well in my area. So I like to use the zip tie to anchor it to the pot because one of the things that is true no matter what you're doing with an orchid or plant in general, you want the base to be solid. You don't want it wiggling around because the more it wiggles, the harder it is for it to establish. If it has a solid connection, the roots are going to grab on and it's going to start growing a lot better, faster. So that's just the principles I go with. And then, I'm not sure we've made it to this point yet, but if we're adding the lava rock now, you can see I'm kind of adding it in a way to kind of anchor the plant. And I'm also using it to lift up the plant because I don't want the plant sitting low in the pot. I want the plant like on top of the media on the pot. So just using the lava rock. And the best thing about lava rock, you get a big bag for $5. Maybe 6 or 7 or 8 now. The price keeps changing. Just like everything else. But it's still, I mean, I just get it at the local big box store like Home Depot or Lowe's. So you can get a good amount for, not that much money. So I have young kids. I don't have unlimited funds. I want the best for my orchids, but I also try to do it in an economical way. So that way I have more money on orchids. So, because I have a problem. Hi, I'm Justine. I have an orchid addiction. Yes. Okay, rabbit hole again. It's 10:30 here. It's getting a little late. Kind of forgetting what I'm doing. But yes, so this is the main division. This plant is going to be kept in as best of an environment I can offer it. And then the other one I'm going to experiment with. The smaller of the two main divisions. And this should be pretty straightforward, but every now and then an orchid just decides to be extra. This one was being a little extra. Just didn't want to go in the right spot in the pot. So after futzing with it for a little bit, playing around with the lava rock, seeing if I could get it to my liking as far as being stable, it just wasn't being still enough for me. And you don't want to jam, you can jam the lava rock pretty well, but you don't want to be too rough where you're damaging tissue. And it was starting to get to that point. So I was playing around with what approach I wanted to do. I could do a pot clip, but I tend to not have very many of those around. I can always make one, but that would have taken time. So in this instant, I go with using just, like a flower stake spike thing. And that's going to help me stabilize the new growth, because no matter what I was doing previously, I just don't like how much that new growth is moving. And I'm going to keep these in an area that doesn't get bounced around a lot until I start seeing roots grabbing the pot. Because one of the most detrimental things you can do after repotting something is to just have it get thrown around. So I keep them inside my lanai, let them root, and then I'll move them to wherever they're going to live. So I've done that with some of those bare roots. Well, they're kind of bare roots, they kind of had roots. But a lot of those plants that I got at Crawl Smith from that international vendor, and those are all doing great. They're ready to be moved out to my main growing area, but it's just so hot right now and sunny. I don't want to risk burning them, so I'll make the transition with those when we head to like the cooler months, like late fall, give or take. And then, yeah, so. But this ended up turning out pretty well. The good old shake test. It is one of the best ways to tell if your orchid is stable. And it's still moving a little bit, but I can live with it at this point, and we will just let it do its thing. So, hopefully you enjoyed this. I know that when I started, I would have liked having a video like this. And just the closing coming up, and that's pretty much all, folks. Okay, so we have this division potted here. We have it's only a single division, but it does have a new growth, so I might just throw that on a tree. And we have, keep meaning to film this one. This is a favorite. And we have this division, which is the main division. So this division is the bigger division, healthier division, more pieces. I mean, I could have done more divisions, like could have taken this part off and that part off, but I want a big plant, so leave that one be. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you learned something. But that is one of my bigger Cattleyas. It's one of my first Cattleyas, and it took 2 days or 3 days, I think 2 or 3 days, to finish this project because I ran out of propane and I still needed to cut stuff. So the propane is what I use to torch my cutting stuff. But yeah, thanks for watching. You guys know the drill. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You guys are awesome, and as always, keep growing. Bye.